After what feels like a lifetime, the Analogue 3D is finally here. Now, in case you're unfamiliar, the Analogue 3D is essentially a modern Nintendo 64, making it fully compatible with any modern 4K TV without needing any special adapters or anything. It plays all the same games, from any region by the way, directly from the original cartridges. And it even supports all the original controllers and accessories too, with the only exception being the Japan-only 64 disk drive. Although there's also a brand new wireless controller made by 8BitDo that's available separately too. So as a huge fan of both the Nintendo 64 and the Analogue Pocket from a few years ago, I couldn't wait to put the Analogue 3D through its paces, as I really wanted to find out one thing. Can the Analogue 3D do for the N64 library what the Analogue Pocket did for mobile games, and become the definitive way to play them? Well, as it turns out, the answer's a little complicated. When it comes to playing your existing library of Nintendo 64 games directly from the cartridges, I don't think you're going to find a better way. Thanks to the FGPA architecture, the Analogue 3D promises 100% compatibility with the Nintendo 64's entire library of nearly 400 games. And I have zero reason to doubt that claim based on the over 50 I tested myself, including Japanese and European games too.
Like I said, I'm a fan.
I even made a video showcasing gameplay of all 50 if you'd like to see it for yourself. But rest assured that every single game I tested performed exactly as I expected it to. Looking, sounding, and playing just like the original hardware, just upscaled to 4K. Now, if you know anything about me, then you already know that the first game I tested had to be Super Mario 64. And I was immediately impressed by just how damn good it felt, as I was effortlessly pulling off double and triple jumps just like I did as a kid on the original hardware. And it's all thanks to the complete lack of any input delay, which is a huge contrast from Nintendo's own N64 Switch Online app, which feels pretty sluggish by comparison. Even things that many emulators have struggled with before, including Nintendo's own through Switch Online, are executed flawlessly on the Analogue 3D. Things like Mario Kart 64's Jumbotron, or the level of fog in Ocarina of Time, or even the rock-solid 60 frames per second of F-Zero X that Switch Online still messes up. The games are rendered so accurately, in fact, that I even noticed weird little things I hadn't before. Like this weird glitchy crap that appears at the bottom of the new Tetris. And sure enough, it's there on original hardware too. Why? God only knows. And did you know you can read almost all the text inside the Great Fox in Smash Bros. 64? Pretty cool. Even better, you can overclock the games to increase the performance in some titles. Do you remember how Perfect Dark could bring your Nintendo 64 to its knees with severe frame rate drops? Well, while that can still happen at overclock turn on, it overall runs so much better, and that applies to plenty of other games too. Although I should mention they can find similar performance enhancements when playing those same games on Switch Online too. Now, when I say these games look identical to how I remember them, I mean that in both the best and worst ways. Because as far as I can tell, the Analogue 3D isn't actually rendering the games internally at 4K. Instead, it seems to be rendering them at their original resolutions before upscaling that image to 4K. Even though the results appear to be remarkably accurate, as it turns out, upscaling 3D games that are running at a low resolution was never going to be as elegant or as pretty as upscaling the 2D pixel art from Analogue's previous systems. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The end result, as accurate as it may be, can be pretty ugly, at least in its raw or clean form, with noticeable pixelation everywhere, which is especially noticeable on even larger TVs. Now thankfully, the Analogue 3D does include 4 other display modes that aim to recreate the appearance of a TV or monitor from around that era. And I have to say, they do look pretty darn good, both making the image less distractingly unflattering, while infusing it with a retro charm that warmed the hearts of gamers that grew up in the era. Also, I appreciate that you can toggle display modes on the fly, just as with the Analogue Pocket, even when using an original N64 controller. Oh, and you can even customize each mode too on a per game basis. That being said, it's still hard to not be a little disappointed when comparing the output to how typical emulators work, including Nintendo's own on Switch Online, which actually do render those classic games at a much higher resolution internally, making them look cleaner, sharper, and probably straight up better than most everyone except for the most hardcore of purists. And even though I grew up with this, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to go back to after getting used to this. As with Analogue's previous systems, the 3D's UI is simple, clean, and easy to navigate, and I appreciate how it recognizes whatever game you decide to throw at it, even the Japanese ones. Although do be aware that to provide your own cartridge art if you'd like that image to appear. But one thing you will need to provide are any controller memory packs, as the system will automatically create one for each individual game and save it to the included SD card. And since each game gets its own, you won't have to worry about memory management. Which also means you can take advantage of features that are impossible to use on the Switch Online app, like saving ghost replays of Mario Kart 64. Although just as a reminder, you can use your own controller packs if you really want to as well. Similarly, every other accessory I tested worked fine too, whether it be using the microphone in Hey You Pikachu, Hey Pikachu, Thunderbolt! Or transferring Pokemon via the transfer pack into Pokemon Stadium. I was even able to play Pokemon the Game Boy game on my TV, in 4K! Take that, Swich Online! Oh, and since the Analogue 3D has the expansion pack built in, any games that required it worked flawlessly too. Hardware-wise, I love the look of the system itself, capturing the original's futuristic vibes, but in an even sleeker and smaller form factor. Even the power light is in the exact same spot, though I do miss the red LED. I'm also a big fan of 8BitDo's wireless 64 controller, which marries most of the unique elements of the original controller, like the giant start button, 8-way control stick, and the 6-button layout, with a more modern design, as in one for people with only 2 hands. And to be honest, it'll probably end up being my preferred way of playing, especially as the built-in rumble felt perfect too. But oddly, although you can turn on the Analogue 3D with a controller, you can't turn it off the same way, which is a strange oversight. But hey, the controller also works just fine on PC or even Switch as well. So it should be pretty clear by now that the Analogue 3D is a great way to revisit your classic N64 library. But I do have to say that it doesn't quite excite me in the same way that the Analogue Pocket did. And I think that might be because the Analogue 3D doesn't make the overall experience feel nearly as additive. Whereas the Pocket not only combined a brilliant form factor with the functionality of multiple systems into one, but it also supported save states, screenshots, and open FGPA, allowing anyone to make their own cores too. It was a truly incredible system. Whereas the Analogue 3D supports none of those things. You can't even put the system to sleep to resume your game later. So, while the Pocket made Game Boy games and others shine like never before, the Analogue 3D's output, impressive as it may be on a technological level, just feels lacking by comparison, especially when up against the enhanced rendering resolution provided by emulators and the Switch Online N64 app. Now, it is possible the Analogue 3D may gain some of these features over time, just as the Pocket itself saw continual improvements too. But for now, the Analogue 3D really just does the one thing really well. It faithfully plays your Nintendo 64 library to a fault. It's just that faithful, maybe a little bit ugly these days. In any case, the Analogue 3D is a fantastic system for those looking for the most faithful way of playing their classic games on a modern display, even if it's not nearly as easy to recommend as the Analogue Pocket for more casual fans. So overall, I like the Analogue 3D. And on that note, that's it for us here. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for tons more from us and everything else gaming too. Now enjoy a few more seconds of classic Nintendo 64 gameplay running on the Analogue 3D.